A lot of people over at Sony, I think, are spooked right now because of what happened with Concord. Concord was a catastrophic failure for Sony. And apparently other developers are kind of a little worried that it could happen to them next. And the reason I'm talking about this is because apparently Bungie is a little scared after watching Concord go down like it did. And it's apparently affecting Marathon's development. Now, this article isn't connected to that. This is more of a coincidence. Marathon development is reportedly facing trouble at Bungie. There's a reason that it was planned for this year and slipped a whole year. So it looks like this is actually a blessing for them. Apparently, sources, according to this Jason Schreier guy, who has me blocked, by the way, the sentiment around the game that he's heard is it's not great, at least as of a few months ago. So things aren't going very good for this game. They delayed it a whole year. Hopefully for the better, right? But there's been development problems with this game apparently for a while. So it's been delayed, and that's probably to give it some really good polish. I don't even really know what this game is. The trailer, which came out a year ago, it has 21 million views, not bad. Doesn't really reveal much either. It's a nice-looking trailer. It's really all it is, just nice-looking. They don't really show you any gameplay. I would like to see more on it. But like I said, apparently they're making changes to this game and everything right now, and Sony and Bungie are a little concerned that this could end up being a Concord failure. And they're going to work hard to make sure that doesn't happen. According to multiple sources, Bungie is considering a premium pay-to-play model for Marathon, priced at $40. This has raised a few questions considering Sony's past attempt with Concord, the live service hero shooter that failed to gain traction and was shut down weeks after its release. Given Concord's failure and the saturated free-to-play shooter genre, has Sony learned anything from its past mistake? Much like the ill-fated Concord, Marathon was originally intended as a sci-fi shooter that would bring something fresh to the genre. However, changes have been made towards an extraction shooter model. Now the game will have a roster of different heroes with its own perks and abilities, turning them into classes. This is partially due to the new director, Joe Ziegler, who took over Bungie's project and implemented these changes. So, if this is going to be some kind of a hero shooter, you really are in a tough market. What will help this game are two things. One, it's Bungie. Bungie has a built-in fan base still. Destiny 2, despite people complaining about it that still play it, they still play it. And, you know, you, of course, have Halo, but really a lot of those people aren't even there anymore, I don't think. But they still have the Bungie name. So the game is going to get positive attention. Just the fact that it's Bungie. I mean, this trailer having 21 million views on it, let's be real. That's because Bungie is attached to it. The name has some prestige still. So a lot of people are going to check this game out regardless because of the Bungie name. Now, the problem would be if they played this and they hate it, and it ends up being garbage, that would kind of bring that prestige of the Bungie name down. I'm sure they're aware of that. And I don't think it's just Bungie that watched that Concord failure and got nervous. I think just about everybody in the gaming industry got worried after seeing that fail. Because, I mean, in a lot of ways, Concord is crazy because that's a Sony exclusive, right? That's a Sony-developed published game. Sony owns Firewalk Studios. So that Sony muscle resulted in nothing. It was a disaster. You can't just put that shit out anymore and expect people to still play it. I mean, that game, I really still think that that game is probably the biggest disaster in the history of video gaming. It's underplayed how bad that disaster was. The only thing I can think of is E.T., And still, at least E.T., despite, you know, the landfill story that we all know to be true now, where there's a bunch of that game sitting in a landfill, it still sold. The problem is it didn't sell enough. They made so many copies that didn't sell that the game ended up being worthless. But initially, people did buy it, just not enough people bought it. Nobody bought this game, which makes me think, honestly, I can't think of anything else. It has to be the biggest disaster in the history of video games. It really does have to be. If you could think of something that bombed worse than Concord, please let me know. I think that game's failure is going to really push back on a lot of DEI stuff. This whole year has been an L for DEI. Suicide Squad, maybe Suicide Squad is a bigger disaster, but I feel like more people bought Suicide Squad, even though nobody's playing it. I guess it's a toss-up. I mean, that game had a license, but Concord still had Sony muscle behind it, so it's kind of tough to say. But regardless, that modern audience has really proven itself to not come out this year. And I do think that this year is going to make some changes in the video game industry. I think a lot of this shit is going to go, at least get dialed down. You're not going to see another Concord where the entire roster is fat people, old ladies, and shit like that. You never see that again, I think. I think that will probably never happen again. But, you know, it's really kind of a blessing in disguise for a lot of these people. Marathon will benefit from this big time. Nevertheless, despite the new direction, Marathon is still heading towards an overly saturated genre with games such as Escape from Tarkov, Hunt Showdown, and Gray Zone Warfare leading the way. Is there room for another pay-to-play premium hero shooter? To add insult to injury, Marathon has a steep uphill battle with just 2 confirmed maps. So that's what's been going on with Sony. I don't know if this game fails. I think out of the gate, Marathon does pretty damn well just because of the Sony, or not Sony, but the Bungie name. Whether or not people stick to it, that's going to be a different story all on its own thing because, I mean, they're not wrong here. It's a cramped market. Everybody wants to get in on it, though, because if you can pull off these games and make them popular, they bring in a shitload of money. That's undeniable. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen for you. Even Bungie, you know, you would think Bungie would be able to pull off a shooter. As much as you want to say about Destiny and the way Destiny runs, the shooting mechanics in that game are solid. That's one thing that Bungie does really well over a lot of other FPS games is the shooting is solid. So I imagine this game will have good gameplay, but what are the characters going to look like? What's going on with it? How does it play? What does it look like? We need to see all that info. But regardless, they have a year to fix whatever the issues are here. And I'm sure these people saying that they're worried about Concord is probably true. I'm sure that they are sweating a little bit. Like now it's like, well, we got to get this right. And they have a year to make it right. So that's a lot of time to make a lot of changes. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments. Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.